I always heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, which made me be like, money's really hard to make. And the ironic thing about that phrase, a lot of the time people take a different thing from it as well. So we might have even heard the same phrase in the same way, but you might even interpret it in a different way. The mental shift of going from being a saver to a spender was hard. Like, okay, cool, you've got money, but then what?
As they say, you can't do anything with it once you did. So
exactly, what they're going to do, put like was a millionaire on the headstone, but didn't, make any new friends or try any new food. Do you know what you're spending on? Do you know what your bills are? And they're like, what do you actually want for your life? And a lot of the time people have these big pipe dreams. I want to set up my own horse sanctuary. I want to run a charity. I want to be able to live in the Bahamas. I want to be able to buy an island or whatever. Okay, whatever it is you want, you can have it, but you just have to make sure that you utilize money in the right way. Because that bit is just your ego going, I don't like the unsafe, I don't like the unknown. And it's this whole thing of like, your brain prefers a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven.
Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Laura with us. Laura, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, everybody. So I am a financial expert in regards to money mindset and financial coaching. So I basically talk about money in a fun, judgment-free, jargon-free way. And I try and make money fun. And the aim is to help people to see money as a tool and to use it to build their dream life. And I do that in so many ways: social media, fun content, talks, workshops, one-to-ones. But yeah, that's what I do.
I'm buzzing about this because one of the things I constantly bang on about is that people don't get taught about finances and money when they're in school. And one of the main reasons I have some knowledge is because it's what one of my parents does. So
no way.
Money is kind of part of the conversation in my house, where particularly like my partner came in and didn't come from a family that it was part of the conversation. So she's learnt a lot from us. And I've seen it with so many of my friends, particularly like, I'm sure you've seen it, the like fear of anything like a credit card or anything like that is not understanding what they're actually used for. So I'm buzzing to actually chat to someone that knows it even better than me. So I'm buzzing for this one.
I'm excited.
But I just wanted to start off by getting you to tell us a bit about your journey, because when I was doing my research into you, your journey is actually really cool. And I think a lot of people, me included, are going to resonate with it. So I just wanted to sort of start at the beginning, really. Yeah,
definitely. So basically spent my whole life wanting to be an actress from like age 10. I was like, yeah, that was my absolute dream. I was like, I'm going to be an actress, going to be Kate Winslet. And I ended up sort of, spending all of those years thinking I would have a very unconventional life and I would go to drama school. So when I got to 19, finished my A-levels, decided that I didn't want to go to university. I was like, right, I need to pay for drama school. But drama school is very expensive. It's like £15,000 per year for tuition, let alone anything else. But I set myself this goal of like, I need to save £15,000. And that's because, I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money. So I was like, I need to figure out how to do it myself. Very delusional 19-year-old. And then by age 22, I'd saved that money. But very last minute, literally like 2 weeks before I was meant to start drama school, I had an opportunity to go traveling with two of my best friends. And it was kind of like once in a lifetime opportunity. So I ended up deciding to do that instead. Traveled around Australia, Bali, Cambodia, Thailand, did a bit of New Zealand, spent all of the money, have no regrets. And whilst I was there, I guess had what one could call as like identity crisis and was like, I don't want to be an actress anymore. I'd been working this full-time job for a little bit to save that money and realized I was good at other things and there was other things I enjoyed, and kind of went on this journey to figure out what I did want to do. And then came back from Australia, got my job back, which was amazing. And I ended up saving another 25 grand and I moved to London. And in the midst of that, then decided to set up a blog / an Instagram about 5 years ago. Just started talking about all the things, but I just found myself naturally writing about money. And basically what I'd had is this light bulb moment when I decided to go traveling, where I didn't have to decide which one I did based on which one I could afford, because the money was there. It was like, which one do I want? And that's when I was like, oh my God, money's well cool. Like, it gives you so much freedom and options and choice. And that's why I started talking about it online, because I was like, I feel like people with my background that don't come from money when they have that experience, like I want everyone to experience that in their own way, whatever that looks like, but the freedom that comes with having money. Yeah, it kind of just took off from there, really.
I mean, first things first, I have to ask, what was your favourite when you went travelling?
Oh my God, that's so hard. So I really loved New Zealand. I thought it was really beautiful, like mountains, hikes, lakes, like love that. But also I'm a sun chaser. So I really enjoyed, there's a little island just off of the south of Cambodia called Koh Rong. And that was beautiful. So probably those two.
Awesome. And the other thing I wanted to ask, because it's something that I think a lot of people have, particularly if they have that moment of like wanting to go traveling, it's that toss up between, I've got this sum of money, I could do something what people would see as sensible with it, whether that's mortgages, rent, anything else, or you go down the route of once in a lifetime opportunity, let's go do that. How was that journey for you mentally? Because I think that's something that a lot of people do, because particularly in the society we're in at the moment, you kind of get drilled into this, like, these are the checkpoints you need to hit at certain ages. So you kind of get sucked into but this isn't the sensible thing to do. So I was intrigued to see what your mental journey was with it.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of factors, right? First off, when I saved that money, I knew either way, it was being spent on an investment in myself, because when you pay student fees, you're not getting it becomes debt, right? If you get student fees. So I was paying for that up front, and it was an investment in myself. It wasn't going into property. It wasn't going into the stock market. So in my eyes, that cash was already for something that was investing in an experience. Obviously, in this instance with drama school, it was going to be training me up, getting skills so I could go on and have a career. The experience of traveling was getting to see new things, try new see new cultures, try new things, meet new people. So either way, it was an investment in myself. It wasn't necessarily do I spend this money in the now on something that is not an asset, or do I spend the money on an asset? It wasn't a toss up between the two. It was more, which experience of life do I want to spend this money on? But it was still a big one, because it was something I'd wanted since I was 10, 9 years later, and I'm going, oh shit, maybe I'm actually going to spend this money on something else. So the mental side of it was harder, with this idea of my own identity being an actress, spending it going traveling, that kind of thing. And then there was the mental shift of like being in Australia and seeing that money go down, because I would essentially, I paid for my flight, I paid for whatever, paid for accommodation, it was a couple of grand, I've still got like 12 grand sat in a bank account. But as I was there and I was experiencing like spending it, what it was getting me, and being like, I'm the other side of the world, when else am I going to get to do this? The mental shift of going from being a saver to a spender was hard, but it's like, I don't have any regrets, because technically, that 15 grand back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, got me a deposit, and I could have a property now, and my net worth would be massive, right? But the experience that I had traveling changed my life. It changed the entire trajectory of my life for so many reasons. So I think it's one of those things, and it's hard, especially nowadays, because in the UK, buying a property is like such a big, it's still drilled into us that that's what we're meant to do, but it's so hard nowadays. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm a big believer in, yes, it's obviously, as a money coach, it's important to look after your finances, save, invest, be sensible with your money, but like also don't miss up on opportunities that are going to change you as a person or give you amazing memories. It's just finding the balance. The balance looks different for everyone. I do believe that there isn't a right or a wrong, but what I do believe in is not getting to 60 and having hundreds of thousands of pounds sat in the bank, but having no life experience, no memories, no whatever. Because what's the point? Like, okay, cool, you've got money, but then what?
You can't, as they say, you can't do anything with it once you did. So
exactly, what are they going to do? Put like was a millionaire on the headstone, but didn't make any new friends or try any new food or what? And obviously, traveling is, for me, I'm obsessed with traveling. It lights my soul up. It's so important to me. Now, that's not the case for everyone. However, you might have a certain hobby that you're really into, or a certain sport, or there's something you're really interested in that you want to funnel some money into that's going to give you experience and memories, or just like investing in yourself in different courses or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes your money isn't always best spent on an investment, unless it's an investment in yourself. But I think it's just important to acknowledge all the parts. And also, money is hard, right? Because the argument is like money. I'm a big believer that like money flows. So it's like if you hoard everything, it's this idea of like you don't believe that more money is going to come to you. But obviously, there's a level of being sensible with your money and not just going crazy and getting to 50 and being like, shit, I've got loads of memories, but I don't have anything else to show for it. There is a balance.
It's a really tricky one, and I think a lot of people in our generation are going through that at the moment. The toss up between being sensible and experiencing life, and I think it's that, like you say, it's that fine balance of finding the in between. I even know myself, I am the worst for like saving something and not wanting to see the number go down. So I'll go, yeah, I'm not going to touch that, despite it's been there for like that amount would be saved, not towards anything. It's just there. And I'm like, no, I don't want to see it go down. And it's such a mental block that I have.
Yeah. Which I get because I was totally like that.
How did you get around it?
Honestly, I guess it came twofold, right? Because going traveling and having all those experience and all of that, I was like, this is amazing. But then it's this argument at the same time of like, I'm a big believer that you can be happy at any point. You're not only happy once you've traveled. You're not only happy once you've bought this thing. You're not only happy once you've spent money. Like you can be happy and live a really happy life without that stuff. And I guess this is where the argument of material stuff versus experience comes in. Because I'm a big believer on spending on experience over material things. But this idea of the number going down, it's just like believing that you have the skills and the money-making capabilities and, the financial, I guess, habits to be able to build it back up if you spend some of it. Like it's good to have this kind of like built-in analyzer of like, is it worth it, is it not? But if you find you're building up your savings, you don't really know what those savings are, and you're missing out on loads of experiences because you don't want to see that number go down, you have to get really honest with yourself and be like, in 50 years, am I going to look back and be a bit pissed off with myself that I didn't do anything? Like, it's like setting yourself certain limits. Like, I feel comfortable spending £500 at the money, spending whatever.
Yeah.
And I think this is what makes personal finance so hard, the personal part. The amount of questions I get, what should I do? What should I save? What should I spend? What split should it be? I'm like, the shoulds aren't like, they don't exist. What you have to do is educate yourself, read stuff, understand your habits, and then make the decision. So yeah, it's annoying because it's not a one answer fits all, but I think extremes are the worst. If you save too much, or you save everything, or you spend everything, like there's a middle ground.
I think it's that classic thing that you've just said there, and I think a couple of other guests have flagged it as well, is that whole belief that once I get to X amount of money, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And that's a other battle to get through that I think a lot of people struggle with is, once I earn 30k a year, 50k a year, whatever that magic number is, then I'll be happy. And that's, as you say, flipping it. And I say this as a bit of a hypocrite because I've been sat there and thinking that myself. But as you say, it's that whole thing of, otherwise you're constantly tracing. There's always a bigger mountain.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it applies to both, right? So it's like, I'll be happy when I make 40k. I'll be happy when I have 50k in savings. I'll be happy when I hit 100k in investments, But then on the other side, I'll be happy once I've just bought this one bag. I'll be happy once I've just bought this car. I'll be happy. So it's like, it's always just this idea of like not finding happiness in the moment. We can find that at any point. And also it's not necessarily, I'm a big believer that like, I know we've really going into talking about emotions, which I find very important when it comes to money, but like life isn't actually just always about happiness, because happiness doesn't last. It's a fleeting emotion, just the same as sadness or anger or whatever. It's more about like contentment and peace and love, and like finding those things that lean you into that, getting into your flow, whatever that is, creating something of purpose, having a community. And those things can happen with or without loads of money. It's just when you put your safety, your security, your emotions on money or on things, that's when the issue is. Whether it's makes you more of a saver or more of a spender, either way, it's not a healthy way to look at it. Yeah. So it's like, that's why having savings goals can be really powerful and good habits, but also knowing the things that you like to spend money on that bring you joy, that you deserve. Like, you work hard for your money, enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think, you hit the nail on the head, and you brought me on to a topic quite nicely, which is how much does our emotions play when it comes to money and finances and looking after your finances? Because we've just highlighted there that there's so much entanglement into personal finance and your emotions. So what have you seen through your own journeys and the people that you've helped along the way?
So emotions play a huge part. Essentially your money mindset is the beliefs and attitudes that you have towards money that impact how you save, spend, and invest and behave with it. Your emotions come from thought. So the thought and the belief happens first. That creates an emotion. Your emotion then drives your behavior, and then behavior over and over again is your reality, right? So that's how your thoughts literally create your reality. It's not like woo-woo, it's science-based. It's neuroscience-based. So understanding your beliefs and your thoughts about money and how you think about money and how you therefore feel about money is really important. And it's going to look different for everybody. But part of your money mindset is made up of, it's made up of a range of different things. So you've got like beliefs, generational beliefs, so what's been passed down from your family, religious beliefs, what religion or culture are you born into. Societal beliefs, like how does the UK feel about money versus the US, and like what society do you fit into? But then also your own experiences, and this is basically your money story. So like what happened to you as a child that made you think a certain way about money? And everyone is different. For example, I always heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, which made me be like, money's really hard to make. Right? Yeah. And everyone is like, oh my God, I heard that. And the ironic thing about that phrase is a lot of the time, people take a different thing from it as well. So we might have even heard the same phrase in the same way, but you might even interpret it in a different way. Now, what that does is it creates these, beliefs, limiting beliefs usually around money that make us feel a certain way, which make us act a certain way. For example, if you're like, I'm a massive spender, I really struggle to stop spending. What emotion is sat behind that? Maybe it is that maybe you believe that money makes you selfish and greedy. So therefore, even though you like a comfortable life, because you believe that so deeply, you go out and spend all your money so that you don't think you become this person with money who's actually an arsehole, right? So you need to unpick that. Maybe it is that, in my instance, I felt money was really hard to make. So therefore it stopped me, trying, because I was scared to go self-employed, but it also made me a massive saver, which yes, has its pros, but I was a total hoarder. Like I held on to every penny. I didn't spend anything. Like my shoes were falling apart. And I was like a 20-year-old woman. Do you know what I mean? Like I can buy a new pair of shoes. So, and that's just what, another example. There's so many different ways that you can approach it, but really just starting to ask yourself, like, how do I think about money? How do I feel about money? And exploring that relationship is the best place to start, because it has a huge impact. Like in my opinion, your mindset towards money is the foundation of how you behave. All the other practical stuffs, the tax efficiencies, the accounts, the budgeting, it's great, but you got to get your emotions in check first.
What about, you mentioned there obviously limiting beliefs, and I think that plays a big part in it. How did you tackle your limiting beliefs when it came to money? So
I didn't really understand it or realize it until I did my financial coaching qualification. Mm-hmm. So I'm a certified financial coach, and I did, this program where we talked through it, but the coaches have to coach each other during the practice. So I'm getting coached, and you learn a lot about yourself. And what I realized, I was like, oh my God, the reason why I haven't quit my full-time job yet and gone full-time self-employed is because all I saw was my dad working all the time. We didn't have any money. And then I built up this belief. Sometimes, like, we all have blind spots. I think sometimes there's things that we're all really self-aware about. And then there's some things that we're really not self-aware about, and that's okay. Yeah. But it's like just knowing that it's kind of like peeling back the layers. So I know right now I've worked through that belief because I was able to go, okay, well, logically, over the last 2 years, I have made money. Brands have paid me. Clients have paid me. So I'm obviously proving that I can make money. So therefore, there is evidence to show that this is not true. Yeah. I was also able to say, well, hang on a minute, where's that come from? And it came from what I'd seen. And it's like, objectively, it can't be true, because there are other people in the world, in my circle, that are making money easily. So why is it easy for them and not for me? And they had their own things, but it's kind of like you have to shift your beliefs. You have to like become aware of them first. Like, what even are they? What is it that's holding you back? Know that you don't have to believe your thoughts. Like, just because you have this belief doesn't mean that you have to believe it's true. Obviously, that's part of the unpicking, because it becomes, second nature, especially when they're really deep and subconscious. But awareness, you know, and providing yourself with alternatives, but the only alternative evidence, should I say, so like to prove that what you think is not true. And a lot of the time we actually already have evidence of it in our lives, but because our brains have a negative confirmation bias, we're always looking for the thing that's like more negative. And our brain is always looking to reinforce what we tell ourselves, so it's going to ignore the things that go against that. So you have to make a conscious choice to go, hang on a minute, let's look at my life or maybe someone else's life to prove how what I'm saying is not true. And then over time, it allows you to sort of like take action. So I was able to kind of look at my life, look at what other people are doing and be like, okay, well, I'll give it a go, because worst case scenario, it doesn't work and I will just get another job, right? We build up these big ideas. So that was, you know, I went on a long journey around that, but I'm a big believer like new level, new devil. So since I've worked through that one, other ones have popped up. But now I understand that I can work through all of those. And that's what I say to my clients. I'm like, money mindset work is an ongoing thing. You don't just like do some journaling, work with a coach and you're like, yay, I'm good for life. New things will always pop up.
I think as well, I think you hit on the head of like, we then catastrophize. Like I was playing that scenario of like, instead of like, oh, I'll just go get another job. But then I know from friends that've gone through it, your brain goes, oh, but then how am I going to explain the gap on CV? How long is that going to take me to solve? What am I going to do with that? And it's that bit that I think most people struggle with.
Yeah. And I think it's funny, right? Because that bit is just your ego, right? Going, I don't like the unsafe. I don't like the unknown. And it's this whole thing of like, your brain prefers a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. Yeah. If I take risks and do something that I don't know what's going to happen, okay, maybe something bad could go wrong, but also something amazing could happen. If I just stay stuck all the time and I stay comfortable, okay, well, I'm comfortable and I'm secure and I'm safe. But what do I have to show? Like, nothing new and exciting is going to happen. And now, obviously, I'm not telling everyone to quit their job because I don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. Because I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur and I don't think everybody should run their own business. However, we all know, like, I'm a big believer that we've all been given dreams for a reason. All of those things and exciting things that we have inside our brains, like, are possible for all of us, but we just have to be willing to get uncomfortable and take risks. Yeah. But they can be calculated risks. You know, when I quit my job, I had like 10 grand in savings and I had investments and like, I had a plan. I didn't just go, fuck it, let's go. I worked through what I could and got myself to a point where I was like, okay, at least I have a 6-month plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the time it's just your ego kicking its legs and screaming and being like, no, like, I want to keep you safe. And you're like, cheers, thanks, appreciate that. Don't need you anymore.
It's really hard because I think as well as you end up in a bit of a rabbit hole. And I think everyone ends up in that scenario of like, you can have the best friends and the best advice that you could ever need, but if you're not willing to actually hear it, big problem.
Yeah. And I think also, like, all of us have a tendency to say the same things over and over again, give ourselves the same excuses, have the same thoughts. Like, I cannot tell you, I spent 2 years running the business on the side as a side hustle. And weekly, I was having the discussion with my housemate of, I'm going to quit this week. To then the next week, they're like, oh, no, it supports me, it suits me. The same cycle over and over again. I'm only human, right? But I got to the point where I was so sick of my own shit. I was like, either suck it up and just stay here and make it work for you and enjoy the job and go, I've chosen to have a 9-to-5 life, or make the decision to leave and just deal with the risk. Like, you get to the point where you're like, you know, I guess for me, one of my things is I don't like this idea of being someone who says they're going to do something and then doesn't. Like, and that's just on me. Yeah. You have to kind of, and it looks different for everyone, but like with money, like, I've worked with people in their 40s and their 50s that feel like completely financially fucked. And they're like, shit, this, I haven't invested, I haven't done this. And I'm like, you got time. This was just your journey. But like, use this as a catalytic moment to go, okay, I want to do something differently.
I think it's, as I say, you've highlighted perfectly there, is everyone thinks money's a young person's game. Yeah. It's everyone's like, oh, but if I'm at this point, I can't do anything to improve. Yes, you could argue like you're gonna it's going to be harder, but that doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah, and also you don't know what you don't know. So if you've got to 50, and like, we're in a world now where financial education is so much more accessible. So people that are 50 now, for example, when they were our age, well, I'm 30, but 20 years ago, they couldn't just pop on Instagram and get some financial guidance.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, yes, you know, if you were 30, that would be more ideal because you'd have longer to invest, but you're not.
Yeah.
And the time's going to pass anyway. You know, it's that whole thing. I can't remember like where it's from. It was like this old woman wanted to play the piano, but it was going to take her 10 years to like become an expert. And she was like, well, what's the point? It's going to take 10 years. I'll be 70. And someone was like, but the time's going to pass anyway. So what difference does it make whether you do or you don't do it? Like, you might as well do it because 10 years is going to pass. So it's like, it's this idea of you can either go, oh, I'm old now, what's the point? And be annoyed about your situation, or go, yeah, in an ideal world, I would have learned this 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but I didn't. And I'm here now and I can either do something about it or just carry on moaning.
It's that classic thing of hindsight's a wonderful thing, I suppose.
Right. Exactly.
What about, obviously we've spoken a lot about the emotional connection to money. I wanted to get to know a bit more of the work that you do. So would you be able to walk us through like what a coaching call might look like with you? And maybe also I think it'd be interesting to look at how that differs based on some people's circumstances, whether that's age, whether that's job, whether that's outlook. How does it shift?
Yeah, so I kind of have, I guess when it comes to coaching, I've got two main like services. One is like the money health check, which is like an intensive sessions. And then one is like a longer coaching package. The longer coaching package is like a 3-month package where every week or every other week I meet with a client, and it's to unpick the emotional shit around the money. Maybe they've been in loads of debt and they've like got out of it, but got back into it again. Maybe they have really big goals. Maybe they struggle to save, whatever it is, they've got like some deep rooted financial habits that they don't like. And we just meet once every like 2 weeks, and it's kind of like therapy. So I'm coaching you on the phone around your beliefs and action that you're taking, and then you kind of have like homework to do, and then you go on and do it, and that's 3 months. But the sort of shorter one is like this intensive session where we have a mindset session and we have a practical session. Because I'm a big believer that, yes, you need to do the emotional stuff, but you then have to bolster it up with the practical. So with that, we do like money mindset for an hour. We dive deep. We understand your money story. We like unpick loads of shit. And then I give you work to go away and do on yourself, because to change your relationship with money on an emotional level, you have to repeat stuff, visualizations, journaling, mantras, taking action, that kind of thing. And then on the practical side, I usually like look at someone's entire financial health. We look at their budget, we look at their debt, we look at their spending, and we create a personalized plan. So it might be like, this is how, like, what your goals are. So what is it you're working towards? Is it you want to buy a house? Is it you just want X amount in investments? Is it you're saving for X, Y, and Z? Is it that you need to clear debt? And then we reverse engineer it and go, okay, what do you need to be like spending and putting away each month to reach that goal in X amount of time? So it's kind of like a little bit of like financial planning, but it's specifically around budgeting and money management, and then your behaviors that play into that. Because I'm not a financial advisor. So currently I am actually doing my financial planning diploma, which will take me 2 years. So I'll be a qualified financial advisor. But the difference between, I guess, like advising and like coaching, or advising and guidance, is coaching and guidance is really around helping you make decisions about your money confidently. Money management, saving, clearing debt, that kind of thing. Advice is really specific, and I would recommend products and things to invest in. And I would like tell you what is good or what isn't a good investment. Yeah. And there's more responsibility. Whereas over here, I'm more just educating you on your options and helping you understand yourself better. Yeah. Which is more actually what people need. Some people really do need financial advice and they need to pay for it. But a lot of the time it's just the habits and the emotion around spending.
Building the skill.
Building the skill, which is exactly what it is.
It's probably the hardest thing. I think once you can wrap your head around them, like you said earlier, money isn't a demon.
Exactly.
It's, as you say, it's more just working out. But I think the biggest skill that I've probably taught friends is budgeting. It's just budget. Yeah. Look at what you've got and look at where you want to go, and then go from there and get from there. But on that note, like, what are some advice that you'd give to beginners?
So I guess some things that I would say is like, number one, get to know your numbers, like really understand where your money is going. A lot of the time people come to me and they're really stressed. They don't know if they're going to hit their financial goals. They don't know what's going on with their money. And I'm like, do you know what you're spending on? Do you know what your bills are? And they're like, it gets paid every month, but I just know that I end up in minus, or it gets paid every month, but I'm dipping into my savings. And people don't know where the money is actually going. And I'm like, you have to know the data. But a lot of people don't want to own up to it, to themselves, because they're like, it means I'm going to have to change my habits. I'm like, yeah, it does. It means you've got to do something about it. And that's okay. But without knowing, can't do anything. So definitely like getting to know your numbers and creating a budget is really, really important. And then creating a plan for whatever it is with your financial goals. So actually setting financial goals, whether that is, I want X amount saved for my retirement, whether that, like, you know, all the examples that I gave earlier. If you don't know what you're working towards, how are you going to stay motivated? How are you actually going to make any progress? So knowing what you're working towards is really important. And then also having a why. So this kind of like links into goals, but what is your why with money? Aside from just, oh, I want to buy this or I want to be secure. Is it like, I don't know, like, so I talk about this concept of achieving your big happy goal, which is basically like, did you see it? Yeah. So it's like working towards what you actually want. And like mine is, I want to be able to travel more and work. So what does that mean I need to do financially? And that anybody can sort of apply the method, but it's this idea that money is the vehicle, it's not the end destination. And when you shift that relationship and you start to see it as that, it actually makes it easier to be less emotional about it, because the emotion can be attached to the end goal or to the lifestyle, and money is just the conduit to take you there.
100%. And I mean, I'm going to come on to it because you mentioned it. Your big happy goal. Can you just talk to us a bit about that? Because I was doing my research into you and it came up, and to be honest, I resonated with it. I was like, I'm all about that. So I just wanted to dive into it and see where that sort of came from and where you got that realization from.
So basically, when you talk to people and you ask them about money, a lot of times people say, I want to be a millionaire, or I want to own a property, or I want to have this much in savings. I say, why? And they're like, or they go, oh, I want freedom. Oh, what does that mean? And there's not too much thought that's been put into it. We live in a capitalist society. Consumerism is at an all-time high, and we're constantly just told that we need to buy things. But it's like, what do you actually want for your life? And a lot of the time, people have these big pipe dreams. I want to set up my own horse sanctuary. I want to run a charity. I want to be able to live in the Bahamas. I want to be able to buy an island or whatever. Okay, whatever it is you want, you can have it, but you just have to make sure that you utilize money in the right way. But a lot of the time, people haven't even, if they have a pipe dream, they go, oh, I could never afford that. Well, that could never work. When actually your dream life is probably closer than you think. Like I've got a podcast about it where I talk about how to calculate your dream life. And it's like work backwards. Like for me, in 10 years, I want to be able to get a weekly massage and a weekly facial and have someone come and do my cleaning and my dry cleaning and have like, I want those things. I have no shame in saying it, but what do the numbers look like? And when I run the numbers, I remember being like, oh, I don't have to have as much as I thought I needed. Right now, you don't have to be extravagant, but it's just about being like, what lifestyle do I want? What goal do I really want in life? And then what do I use for money? So for me, like I mentioned, like after going traveling to Australia, I came back and I was like, I have to do that again. So I actually saved £10,000. Well, part of that 25k was to go towards traveling South America. And then obviously COVID hit. So I couldn't do that. Then obviously I spent the money building my business. So the dream changed, but what I knew was I always wanted to travel. And then a year went by where I hadn't really done much traveling, and I was running my business, and I was like kind of saving, kind of investing, and I was a bit like, what am I working towards right now? Like, yes, I love my business and I want to be, running it, but like, what am I actually doing? And that's when I just got really honest with myself, and I was like, okay, I know I want to travel. I'm lucky that because I run my business, I can take it and do it anywhere. So how does that actually look? So essentially it's like deciding what that goal is. And like for me, I want to travel around like a digital nomad. Doesn't mean I want to do that forever, but I know that that's the next big thing. So what do I need financially? I need cash flow in my business. I need a certain amount of savings for an emergency fund. And I want some money in investments so I at least know my net worth is growing. And then you work backwards. So it's just like really coming up with what you want. I want to say what you want. It needs to be experience and lifestyle based, not like, I just want to, I don't know, I just want this brand new car. It needs to be something more about the way that you're going to live your life. And then work out what money you need to get there and then how you're going to do it.
I love this particularly because I think in the podcast you did that I listened to, the goal is to sort of travel, isn't it, 3 months of the, be away 3 months of the year and then back. And I think that resonates with a lot of people, me included. I'd love to get to that point. And I think, as like you just said, it feels further away than it actually is, because I think we always set the goal bigger than it needs to be. Because as many friends, me included, you go, oh, I want to be financially successful. And it's like, as you said, what is that? And that's a very vague statement of you just want a lot of money, but what is a lot of money? Because that statement changes depending on who you speak to.
Exactly. Like financially successful or financially free means something different to everybody. And it's like not, for example, not buying a house for the sake of it. If you've run the numbers or buying a house makes emotional sense, amazing. But don't just do it because society's told you to do it. Because I've had people in my community and clients buy a house because they were told to do that. They spent a couple of years saving up for the deposit, being like, I'm going to say no to things so I can do it. And they've got on the property ladder, great. But then they're miserable in their house because they've got these really high bills and then the mortgage has gone up and they still can't do stuff. And they're like, what am I doing this for? I'm wasting my 20s, Doesn't mean you shouldn't want a house. If you're like, oh my God, I've always wanted my own little place, like by a lake, I want to be gorgeous because it's emotional, it's motivating, but don't just do it because your parents told you to. And it's similar to like your career, right? Oh, I want to do this, I want to do this. Do you want to do that? Or somebody told you you should do that? Yeah. So it's like just really questioning things and like not just chucking around the phrase, I want to be a millionaire, I want to be financially successful. Okay, what does that actually mean? Because you'll go off track if not, and you'll just overspend and you'll do this. And then if you're working towards a goal that doesn't actually excite you or you don't know why you're doing it, you'll end up making decisions about your money that you're not actually aligned with. What's the point?
100%. And I think the house thing's quite a poignant thing for me, having, like I mentioned at the beginning, my mum comes from finance and that's very much her sector is mortgage and financial advice. So it's been something that's been drilled into me from a very young age. But then it's like you say, it's that whole thing of what do you actually want? What is your goal? Why do you want the house? Because I think, as we've said, you often end up in the rat race of, but everyone else in their 30s is doing this. Everyone else in their 40s is doing this. Blah, 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 blah. And then it becomes, as you said, it's like, is that what you want or is that what society wants? Mm-hmm. It's a tricky game to get out of. I'm very much in the thick of the moment. It's a very tricky game to get out of, to try and wrap your head around. But I think a big part of that is a topic that you know quite a lot about in investments, because I think a lot of people who haven't necessarily had a financial education or as much of one, their instinct is, if I buy a house, my net worth's going to be growing and that property will be growing in value and everything else. And that, I think, is where society is at the moment. Like when I talk to my friends, it's always like, but if we buy a house, then it's mine. And then that's very much, to be fair, that is very much what's been drilled into me. But I think there's so much more power in investing in other things. So I just wanted to get you to speak on that and also your investment journey and how you help clients get into investing. And sort of, I think as well, it's investing. Everyone thinks of investing is like stocks and shares and like full on Wolf of Wall Street moment, but actually, when you actually learn about it, it's nothing really. It can be like that, but the day to day of it isn't really like that as your average Joe. Yeah,
I think so. I guess first off, like I say, the UK especially is obsessed with buying property, and back 20, 30, 40 years ago, it made sense because house prices were in alignment with wages. They're not now, so it's a really hard asset to get into. If you also just buy one property, like a home that you want to live in, great. It's an investment. Every time you're then spending on accommodation, it's also going, your monthly mortgage is going towards equity within the property. So you're increasing your net worth. Great. But it's still an investment. I think people forget this. They seem to take investing in property so lightly, like, I'll just figure out along the way. I'll just chat to my mortgage advisor. But yet when it comes to investing in the stock market, they're like, no, that's so risky. That's like gambling. And I'm like, it's the same as investing in property. Once you bought a property and your money is not easily liquidated and it is in an asset, which is a property, the property market goes up and down. So you cannot easily sell that off. So whilst no one can take it away from you, unless obviously it got repossessed, but you own this house. What if you want to sell it and then the property market is in the shitter and you end up losing loads of money? Like, what if something happens to the house that's like I've had so many scenarios which breaks my heart for people whereby they've bought a property or a flat and then maybe there's been cladding issues or maintenance issues that they can't afford and they now can't sell and they have to have that house forever. So what they have to do is save up for another deposit, rent that house out. Like there are a lot of things that come with owning a property. And again, I'm not anti-property at all, but I think a lot of people built a lot of wealth through property many years ago, and it is glamorized massively. Yet now what we have as our generation is the ability to invest on the stock market really easily. And you're right, like people think it's like trading, sat looking at screen, like screens all day, like buying and selling. And I'm like, no, that's day trading, where people buy low and they sell high to make a profit really quickly. But long-term investing, like property, is you consistently investing into things that are going to give you a return over the long period of time, and your money compounds, so you get compound interest and you build your wealth for the future. And it is so much easier than people think. The barriers to entry are a lot lower. Yes, it takes a little bit of work in regards to understanding what you need to invest in, and how to do it. There's so many amazing resources out there. There's books, there's podcasts. I have my course where I teach people like basics of getting started on the stock market. And it's like taking that small amount of time to learn to then do it, as opposed to just going, oh, that's not for me. And I think this happens a lot, it especially happens with women, which I completely get, because it's been hundreds of years that we've not been involved, like included financially in the conversation. But, my journey with it was basically I was saving all this money. I had this, money sat in my bank account, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm so rich. And I went on a date and I was talking about it. It was in context. And this guy was like, you do realize that you're losing money by it being sat in a bank account? And I was like, what? And he explained, this was before I started my my page, obviously. But he explained inflation and the impact that that's having, and how inflation eats into the buying power of your money. So even though you have 25k saved today, in 10 years it won't be worth 25k, but you have to invest it into something that beats inflation and builds wealth. He actually talked to me about investing in Rolexes, but I was like, nah, that doesn't interest me. But I went and looked into like the stock market and other options, and I ended up just learning about it over the course of some time, and then I started doing it myself. And then when I realized it was so easy and that everyone should be doing it, that's when I started talking about it online. And I was like, I'm very passionate about getting people, specifically women, to start investing in the stock market.
100%. And I'm going to say this as someone that I taught myself. So when I learned about the stock market and how to invest, particularly into index funds, I taught myself during COVID. I spent, I think, probably about a month deep diving in YouTube, learning. As you say, there's so many amazing creators. You do it, and there's so much out there, and it's still seen as this scary thing of like, oh, but I'm going to lose all my money. Actually, one of my favorite things is, I think one of the creators I've followed showed you a graph of index funds and what happens over time. It's crazy. And so that's one thing I would implore people to do. Just go and learn about it. You don't actually have to do anything in the first instance, because it can be quite scary. Just go and learn. Go and learn. There's so much out there. I'm sure. Laura's here to help. Go and learn it, because it's one of those things that people, I think, over pressurize and think it's this big scary thing.
Yeah, and I think like the issue is one of the biggest things is like, I'm scared I'm going to lose all my money, and it's risky. First of all, leaving your money sat in cash is risky. Like, facts, number one. And number two, nobody wants to lose money. Like, anyone that does is crazy. Yet you need to understand your own risk profile. It's okay if you're low risk and you just want to build a small amount, but if you're putting your money into something that beats inflation, there are a lot of things out there that do that. Like we say, I'm a big fan of investing in index funds and ETFs, because whilst they may make a lower return than investing in individual stocks have a lot higher risk. You might hit the absolute jackpot and invest in, imagine investing in the early days of Uber. You'd be laughing now. But you have to have an interest in business and understanding how to read POs and annual financial statements. For me, I don't give a fuck. I can't be asked, because the amount of time it would take me to read individual charts and stocks, I'm not interested. But what I do know is that I can invest in funds, which is like a collection of stocks or a collection of companies, and it diversifies my money, and my money grows over time. And it's what rich people have been doing for years. So a lot of the time, if you are affluent or you've been born into a family with a lot of money, or born into a family with somebody that invests, and you got taught it from a young age, you are less scared of it. You understand how it makes your money grow, and you've probably been doing it from a young age because it just is like second nature. But if you didn't get taught about it, or you come from, you know, a low socioeconomic background, or your family don't have as much money or whatever, naturally it feels scarier because money feels more scarce. It's like, oh my God, no, I can't afford to lose it. But, you know, there's stats out there that show that if you're a long-term index fund investor, the chances of losing money are like nearly 0%, which is wild. Doesn't mean to say you're going to make tons, but the fact that if you're scared of losing it and the percentage is so low, make it make sense.
Yeah.
But people don't know this, and this is what I'm here for. And what I will say is there are no stupid questions. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I feel kind of stupid that I don't know, or that I'm scared of taking risk. I was you. I literally knew nothing, and I was scared, and it took me a year to invest. But now I'm doing it. I'm on the other side being like, I promise you, it's not like that.
It's also like exactly what you said earlier, and it's funny enough. It's what I say to all my friends when we talk about disability, because everyone goes, "Oh, how are you so cool?" With like people asking you questions about it, and I'm like, people only know what they know, so you can't judge someone for not knowing something. Because if they've never been taught it, like if you've never been taught how to fly a spaceship, you're not going to know how to fly a spaceship. So like,
exactly,
it's
cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, I think, as I say, particularly when money gets involved, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and it makes sense. It's so much of our lives revolves around money. And I think that's the other big part of it is, well, we've spoken about the emotional connection to it, and it's connected to so many different things as well, which is a challenge in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also when it comes to investing, there is an emotional part. There's a book called The Psychology of Money, which is one of my favorite books in the whole world. Highly recommend reading it. It helps you understand the importance of leaving your emotions out of investing and why, you know, the impact of that. And I think that when you learn something, I always say the phrase, you can't unring the bell. So once you know something, that information is with you forever. So when somebody hears about investing, and it's like, you hear it here, you hear it here, you hear it on Instagram, you hear it this, at some point, hopefully, one of the times you hear it is enough to make you go, I can't hear this anymore and not do something about it.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of have that drive to know that there is a different way of living. Like for me, investing changed my entire financial trajectory, because I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, well, I have to save my way to retirement or financial freedom. So that means I have to have a really high paid job, because I have to take a huge portion of it to save. When I learned about investing, I was like, oh, I don't need loads of money. I just need loads of time.
Yeah.
If I start small now, I can build it up. And then by the time I am 60, you know, hopefully my aim is to hopefully retire at like 50. Who knows? We'll see what happens. This is why for me it's so important to do a job I love, because depending on what happens with my finances, but I at least have a goal that I'm working towards. But the key thing is time more than money. You're better off starting now with a smaller amount than starting in 10 years when you have more money, because you can't claw back the losses that you make by waiting to invest.
100%. I couldn't agree with that more. The whole little and often is a skill when it comes to finances that I think more people need to adopt. And it's something I realised quite early on because that's what we talked about earlier when it comes to saving. Too many people go, oh, but I need to put away, I don't know, they might be trying to save 10 grand in a year. Let's say just as a random ballpark number. And they're going, but that means I've got to save 5 grand in 6 months. How the hell am I going to do that? When actually you're probably better off looking at it going, well, how much is that a week? How much is that a month? Then it doesn't look as scary. Because I think as well, when we talk of big numbers, that like, oh, it seems so far away. It's like you said earlier of that the dream life feels so far away. It's the same when it comes to savings. Everyone goes, oh, but 10 grand's like loads. It is a lot of money, but it's still doable. And I think breaking it down to small steps.
Yeah, if you break it down to small steps, but then you're also able to go, let's say you break down a goal down into monthly, you're able to go realistically, I think it's important to have big goals and be delusional, right? But at the same time, not be stupid. If you're on a 20k salary and you want to save 10 grand, one of two things. You're either saving 50% of your paycheck every year. So what are you leaving to enjoy or live off of?
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
So you're either having to save 50% or you're having to bring more money in. Both potentials.
Yeah, yeah.
But without knowing that, you don't know what to do. And you just fall into the place of going, oh, that's loads of money. Okay. All right, don't do it then.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And until you know those numbers, this is why I like the numbers side of it, because I'm like, yeah, but it gives you a goal. And if you set, and then maybe you go, do you know what? 10k feels a bit too unrealistic. I'm going to try 5k in a year. Well, that's already 5k you had more than before. And you might go, actually, that's easier than I thought. But what you don't want to do, and this applies to more than just money, but don't put yourself off of something because it feels too big, because it's the whole thing of like, if you aim for the stars and you land on the moon.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you aim for the moon, land on the stars, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that is right. I think it's moon's the moon, because it's moonshot and land on the stars.
Land on the stars, right?
So there you go. But coming back to investing, what would be some of your do's and don'ts for newbies? Because as we said, it's quite a daunting thing getting involved in it, particularly if it's completely new to you.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is don't jump in without having the knowledge first, and don't just jump on trends because other people are doing it. Because if there's a trend, an investing trend that you hear, you can make loads of money really quickly. The chances are you're too late. Yeah. So trends are bullshit.
It's the crypto phase.
Yeah. So what I will say is, when it comes to investing, you've got your like, and I say safer with like little quote marks, but like the less risky investments. So things like bonds and index funds. Then you have like, I guess, medium to high, which is like individual stocks. And then you have really high, which is like crypto and, crypto, NFTs, collectibles, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Depending on how risky you are is going to depend, and how much time you have to invest is going to depend on what that split is. But yeah, don't jump in at the deep end and put all of your life savings into investments and just hope it's going to work. Have a plan, educate yourself first. Yeah. Like I say, depending on how you like to learn, do it in a safe, tax efficient way. So maybe through a stocks and shares ISA, or a lifetime stocks and shares ISA, or a SIP, because tax obviously is really important when it comes to investing. Ask people questions, but also don't take what they say as gospel. For example, you chat to a friend, I think I'm going to start investing in the stock market. And they go, oh my God, don't do that. My uncle lost all his money. And you go, fuck, I'm not going to do it. Chances are the uncle probably put 10 grand in one stock that they heard on Reddit that was going to do really well, and it didn't, and they lost all their money. But then all you hear is that my uncle lost all their money. Because I hear this all the time. My so-and-so lost all their money. And I'm like, they didn't do it in the way that I'm talking about then.
Yeah.
Because you can't, so it's like, but what I will say is know that there is capital at risk. Your money is always at risk, but your money is always at risk when you invest in anything. When you invest in yourself, you can go and invest your money into a uni degree. Doesn't mean you're going to get a high paid job. You can go invest your money into a property, but doesn't mean you're going to be able to sell it for a profit. It's this idea of educate yourself, be okay with taking risk, but still have the financial, have your money saved in an emergency fund in case anything happens to your job. Have savings for, be saving in cash as well. And I always say it's not a saving or investing, it's saving and investing. So you save for short-term goals in cash, and you invest for long-term goals through the means that you wish. And yeah, that's what I would say on my do's and don'ts.
I'm going to ask a really, really basic question, but I think it's a really powerful question. What would you class as a short-term goal, and what would you class as a long-term goal?
So I would say you do it based on time. So short-term goal is anything you're going to do within the next 1 to 5 years. Long-term goal is like 10 years plus. Whatever those goals are. So for example, your short-term, let's take buying a house, okay? That falls into the category of short or long, depending on how long you have to save. For example, I have a long-term house plan, so I will probably not buy a house maybe for another 10 years, who knows? Which means technically I could invest my cash into the stock market and then in 10 years' time, pull some money out. And I always say to people, give yourself at least 10 years to invest in the stock market to ride the waves of it, going up and down. But if you know you want to invest into a property within the next 5 years, don't be putting that money that you need in deposit in investments, because you don't know what's going to happen. So you would look to save that in cash. But some short-term goals would be like your emergency fund, holidays you want to go on. Maybe you need to buy a new car. Maybe you need to save for insurance. Maybe you want to quit your job, whatever that is. Long-term is literally like essentially retirement and your future. Yeah. Now, retirement for you might be 30 or 40 years away, not 10 years away. But 10 years away might be you want to have a family. Or I don't know, like whatever that kind of looks like, but it's more like long-term life and retirement planning and having money and financial freedom so that you don't always have to go to work. That's the sort of more long-term aim. But short-term is like the little goals, not little, but the smaller goals that you want to hit.
And what about, obviously, you've spoken a little bit about the emergency funds. And I think that phrase, people don't know they know what it means, but people interpret in different ways in terms of the amount that they're going to need and what they should do. How do you advise when you're coaching, how do you advise people look at it in terms of what should they be aiming for? Should it be X amount versus your income? How do you go about that conversation?
So I think the more important thing is to think about your expenses, because essentially your emergency fund there is if you, for whatever reason, don't have money coming in from a job. Mm-hmm. You lose your job, you get made redundant, you end up changing your job and you take a pay cut and, whatever, or you get ill, or an emergency happens. So that kind of falls into two things. So with the job loss and or the income change, you need to know that you have money to pay the bills that you have committed to. So survival, house bills, electricity, water, phone bill, and eating, your basic survival needs. The other side is if there is an emergency, your car breaks, which means you couldn't get to work or drop your kids off to school, your washing machine breaks, your fridge breaks, whatever things they are. I just say combine them and have them as just one emergency fund. Obviously, you'd be really unlucky if you both lost your job and then also needed money for like repairs. Obviously, that would be really not ideal. But it's basically having money in case of emergencies so that you don't have to go into debt. The rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in cash. Everyone is different. Whatever makes you feel safe. You might want 12 months worth. You might just want 1 month's worth, right? It's down to you, but 3 to 6 months is a nice rule of thumb. Now, if you calculate that and you're like, that is a lot of money, it's okay to save for it over years. It doesn't have to be all like that. But as long as you've got a goal, you're working towards it, you're putting something away, then happy days. Awesome.
And lastly, I just wanted to ask about your podcast and how that all came about.
Yeah, so if you can tell, I love chatting and talking. I'm very confident on camera. I'm very confident talking. It's like my favorite. I love videoing. I love podcasts. I've always listened to podcasts. And I remember a couple of years ago, I just said for ages, I'm going to do a podcast. To explore the like emotional, the practical and the spiritual sides of money. And funnily enough, I was going to set it up in 2023. But my best friend, who's one of my best friends, she lives in Australia now. I remember bringing this idea to her and I was like, this is the plan. I'm going to do it in 6 months. She was like, why would you do it in 6 months? Why wouldn't you just do it now? And I was like,
fair play.
And I did this like podcast launch course thing. And I remember it saying, if you're going to set up a podcast, you should have at least 10 episodes on your own first to like establish it as your own. And I was like, love that. So the plan was to do 10 and then just see what happened. But now I'm on 115 episodes of just me. So yeah, they're like 10 to 20 minute episodes where I just talk about all the different things about money. I answer different questions. Sometimes I give life and business updates. Sometimes it's a mix of things. I talk about my personal life on there as well. But the aim is to help people like have regular convos about money in their ears. So yeah, I love it. I'm about to hit 150,000 downloads, which I'm very proud of. I'm sure one day I'll bring guests on, but I'm not going to do it until I know what that looks like. I have an idea, but yeah, right now it's just
amazing. We didn't actually cover the spiritual side of money, so I'll just quickly ask, to finish off, talk to us about the spiritual side of money.
Yeah, so for me, in my opinion, the spiritual side of money is that money is abundant, money is an energy, money flows. I guess it taps a little bit on the emotional side, but essentially like money only has value when we as humans choose to attach something to it. And we know this because how can £1 now mean something so different before if it's still just physically £1? Even more so now that it's just numbers on a screen because we barely have cash, it's all digital. But it's this idea that money is an energy and money needs to flow, which is why I'm not a big believer in hoarding too much money, because when you hoard it, it gets stagnant. And it is just a value exchange, right? So I offer a service and in return, I have something universal. A client pays me, a brand pays me in money. I can then do something with. And we attach ourselves, especially like business owners or entrepreneurs, this thing of like making money and bringing money in and what we do with it. And then maybe it makes them feel like this, makes them feel dirty. They feel like they can't charge. But essentially, it's like in this instance, you're offering a service. Now, whether it's you have a 9 to 5 and you offer up your time, which is valuable because time is the only finite resource that we have. Well, not only, one of, or you're a business owner and you're selling your services, like you deserve to get money in return, because money is the universal way that we exchange value. So on a spiritual level, it's like money just helps you be more of you. Money helps you, if you're a generous person, the more money you have, the more generous you can be. You know, it just amplifies who you are. So the spiritual side is more around, I guess, this idea of like manifesting money. You know, if you can manifest, I'm a big believer in manifesting and the law of attraction. And whilst I'm not, I don't have the attitude of like, if you're in poverty and you're really poor, just manifest thousands of pounds. Like, you know, I'm not stupid. I'm not woo woo in that. I am woo woo, but like not to that extent of being not acknowledging my privilege. But I do believe that you can call money in just the way that you can call in opportunities, and you can call in a partner, and you can call in, you know, jobs. Like money is the same. And yeah, it's just this idea that like money is an energy. And I just really do believe that.
I think that is a thing that people need to, I mean, again, me included, have to bring that mindset round. Because I think a lot of us, like we say, it's that whole thing of, oh, one day the money's going to dry up. Like one day it's going to stop. And I think that's a mindset that a lot of people fall into. And it's really hard to fall back into the abundance mindset of like, something will come along, I'll figure it out. It's so hard. I think day to day, for your average Joe, that is so hard to do.
I think the issue with this idea of like, oh, money will come is the same as manifesting, right? In any capacity. Oh, the job will come. If you're sat on your ass on Netflix and you go, oh, the money will come, the job will come, it's probably not, right? Manifesting anything, law of attraction for anything still requires action. It's just the faith and the belief and the trust that you then get rewarded at the other end with whatever it is. So it's like, it still has to come with action. Like money isn't just going to like pop along for no reason. You have to get on I'm a big believer, you have to get on the energy of money. So like things that I ask my clients to do is like write a letter to money, and like, if you had loads of money, how would you act? How would you feel? Okay, do that now. Like get on that energy first and the money will come. And one of the biggest things, you know, I think that I guess for me, the hard thing about this section of it is I am a very spiritual person, but I think people cross off manifesting and like law of attraction as very woo-woo, even though there's a lot of science behind it and like, you know, quantum physics and like all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of the wealthy people that I've met and interviewed or questioned, every single one of them have an attitude of money is abundant, money flows to me easily, I make money really easily, and they believe in like the spiritual side of money. You just don't see it and it doesn't get talked about. And, you know, just in the same way of like, if you have an attitude towards money which is negative and like you're not a good house for money, money is not going to want to come along and hang out with you. Like, you have to believe that you are worthy of having money and that you are worthy of building wealth. And doesn't mean it's going to be the same trajectory for everybody. Like, oh, if we just do these couple of steps. But it's just believing that there's enough money out there for you and you taking the right actions to get there, whilst on that journey being okay with what you do have and being grateful for what you have. Like, that's a huge part of it. So yeah, I just feel like money falls in alignment with all the other things that you think about when it comes to building your dream life. You know, if you want to manifest a partner, a house, or whatever, you can also manifest money. So I think it's really important to look at the spiritual sides of money and understand what that means for you and how you can like build that into your life. But it's to drive you to like create action, because you're then creating your own resource, as opposed to, oh, it'll just come along. Like if you want to date the most amazing partner, you're not going to find them in your lounge.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I think it's a fine balance, because there's that whole thing of waiting for things to happen or getting in the rabbit hole of, oh my God, I need to be on the go all the time. Zoom out is what I always say to people. Just zoom out and go, okay, what's going on at the moment? What can I do? What can't I do? Go from there. Because I think that's the other thing. We always play in extremes. We always go one way or the other. Oh, you've got to be a saver or a spender. You've got to be this, you've got to be that. No, middle ground's always good. Too much of something's always a bad idea.
Exactly. And also, humans love to label themselves. I'm this, I'm that.
Yeah.
But the issue with that is when we attach too much of our identity to said label, we then act in alignment with that. So if you're like, I've never had any money doesn't flow to me. Yeah, because you're saying that. Like, do you know what I mean? That I'm a really big believer in that. So it's very interesting, and I could talk about it for a really long time, but there is definitely a spiritual side to money, in my opinion.
Definitely. And then lastly, we always give our guests the last question, which is, what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
My one is actually around our you know how people say, oh, I'm just a late person. I'm just late. I don't think that's a good enough excuse to be late. I think being late is really rude and out of order on the other person's time. And I think if you class yourself as a late person and you use that as an excuse to be late, I don't agree with it. I think that is a cheap excuse. That's my hot take.
100%. I couldn't agree. Well, I mean, mine comes from a different place because I realised, I think about a year ago, that my thing of not being late and always being 15 minutes early comes from being a wheelchair user and having that experience of getting into class but making an absolute racket and an utter inconvenience of doing it. So then I automatically go, no, I'm going to be early because then I don't have to deal with any of that shit. I'm always early. And literally my friends are like, why are you always 50? So I'm like, one, it takes me longer to do everything. Yeah. Two, I hate being late because of that reason of being the awkward, like, oh, sorry, I'm late. We'll get a quick rush, putting everything down. And it's, I completely agree.
Yeah. And I think if you're like, it's just who I am. No, it's not. It's a choice to be late. So don't be late.
it's those friends that you've got that you meet at past and you tell them at quarter past that they've got to be there. Because they don't know, there's always that 15-minute window. Yeah.
And you're like, I knew you were going to be late.
Or they'll flip the script on you once and you'll be like, oh, what are you doing here? They're like, you told me at this time.
Yeah. And you're like, well, and then you just say to them, yeah, that's because you're always usually late. So that's on you.
And that's when you get the flip round of, well, you're the one that's late this time. And it's like,
I'll say
fair point. And then, of course, we will always link Laura down below if you would want to check out anything that she does, including the podcast, including all of her coaching and everything she does. But I also want to say a massive thank you for coming on. It's been a great conversation, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. If you want to find me, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, which is just basically Laura Anmore, and then my podcast is called Mind, Money, Soul.
Perfect. And we will link it all below as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast. These my doubts make it hurt.